Hello. Hi.
Hi, are you the speaker?
I am the moderator of the panel.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, moderator. I'm Becky.
Good to meet you.
Same here.
We'll
I know
be
I'm
starting-
early.
Yeah, we'll be starting in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, is that Nilofer?
It is. Hi.
Hi. Good to see your face.
You too. I actually felt good. I got a chance to shampoo my hair and everything.
Where's my video? Okay.
And there's Elise.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I know what you mean about I put on some different clothes.
Put on lipstick for you.
Yeah, exactly, right? Okay. I have a special guest here. She won't be speaking. If she does, that's Leah.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
Leah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about Zoom. You get to meet people's kids and their pets and their husbands and
Yeah.
see what their bedrooms look like.
Yeah. I'm gonna maybe. Okay.
Is the sound good?
I can hear pretty well.
Yeah, can you hear me? Because I do have headphones. I either have, I don't know.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're fine too.
Great.
There's probably, let's see. Is the same link that we checked in with the right link for other people?
It's the same one?
The Zoom link that we just logged in with, is it the same link for other people?
The length of time?
Sorry, the Zoom
Oh,
link.
link. Yeah, I think it's the same for everyone. This is this is the meeting version. I think the webinar version allows some other bells and whistles, but this is what the Authors Guild provided me, so it seems like it'll work. I've never moderated a meeting with this many participants. We had at least 99 people sign up. I think that's 100 is the maximum that they allow for this account. I don't know exactly what that's going to be like, but should be okay. I'm just working on a list of everyone's Twitter handles, and Lizette also provided me some other social media links. Is there anything else that either of you would like to add to that besides Twitter?
Oh, do you have my Twitter?
Yeah, your Mystic Flavor.
Yeah, I also have Super Ager too, but let me see where that is. I can't remember. I have a, I have a underscore in it, but I don't remember where it is until I look at the account.
Oh,
just go like this.
And Nilofer, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's a slightly different emphasis, but you're so close that I normally wouldn't correct it. It's Nilofer,
Nilofer, okay.
but thank you for asking.
Oh, it's underscore super ager.
So at underscore super ager, SUPERAGER.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. And nobody has anything that you'd like me to display. I don't know if you can do screen shares. I think only I may be able to.
I think we can, yeah, because I have that icon on my, yeah,
Oh,
you
you
can, we could share it in a pinch or if we need to.
Okay, so if you have anything,
Okay.
Hello.
hello. Oh, Naomi, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
So we have Nilofer and Elise. Elise, do you just go by Elise or Elise Marie?
Elise is fine.
Elise, okay.
Yeah.
And then when Lizette shows up, we'll have the whole panel. I'm working on display everyone's Twitter handle. Is there anything else anyone would like me to show as far as social media, where to find you on social media?
I'm actually not active on Twitter, so you don't need to share mine.
Oh, okay. So should I put anything for you or just?
Facebook, they can find me on Facebook.
Okay, so just under your name.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. And did anyone have any questions about the format, the questions, the material I emailed earlier?
Thank you for organizing us so we're so well taught. I love to see who actually has green plants in their life. I'm like, I don't have any green plants.
I have a whole, here, I'll show you. I have a whole garden in my house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Talent.
It's a new thing. I've been, maybe like almost, yeah, it's some big ones behind me up there. Maybe the last year, I've been really getting into it. It's so nice. It's really helping me feel grounded. And yeah, I don't have a garden. I'm in an apartment, so it's nice to have a little bit of greenery around.
Yeah.
Definitely. I can't keep houseplants alive.
Oh, really?
No.
The trick is to get a whole bunch and then, you know, treat them as well as you can. And then the ones that survive, they're survivors.
I've heard you're supposed to water them.
Indeed. This is a thing you have to do. But it's kind of fun. I mean, I think, especially now that we're all home, like I'm shooting them with a water gun, and that's fun. Thing to do. So it's a thing to look forward to.
For those of you guys that are on social media, like right before a panel goes on is usually the greatest time. You guys already know that, right? So like I just used an image of myself and what I'm wearing just to promote it, just because usually last minute people kind of use that as an excuse to be like, oh yeah, I meant to join that. So
Yeah.
So what did you do? You did a screenshot or you did a...
I took a picture right before I came downstairs of this crazy outfit I'm wearing. And because I couldn't find conditioning shampoo anywhere in the entire house, my hair is like, insane. And I decided just to go with it and match my outfit to my hair. And so I took a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because visuals tend to do better than just the link.
Right.
You're right.
Good idea.
It's a little personal story, embarrassing, stupid personal story, but you know, it'll cause just another couple of people to join in. And if each of us does it, it just helps a little, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe they're locked out because only 99 people can get on.
Oh, that's true.
But it makes it more appealing, like sold out.
Yeah, there's quite a few people already with us.
Great. 21.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, not everybody is likely to either remember or actually, you know, show up when the time comes. But that's how many people registered.
I'm going to run out for like 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Don't worry.
Okay.
Hi, Lizette.
Hi.
Hi.
So our
What's your
panel is complete.
What is Lizette's Twitter? Do you?
What I have for Lisette is.
I'm gonna look this up a little bit.
At INTJS_rock.
Which we do.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Rock? I'll pick up that. Okay.
This is one of the social media things I struggle with. Trying to tweet things while actually doing something.
Yes.
Hey, there you are. And what does Super Ager stand for? What's the story?
It is all about aging well and healthy using yoga lifestyle. You can do it anytime. Anytime in your life, you're always influencing the end of your life. You know, it's always going forward. So this is a good time to super age right now because you have lots of time on your hands to change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, I'm gonna grab mine. Let me just grab that.
So 1 minute.
All right.
No time.
I have a foster kitty somewhere, so he might meow.
Yeah, maybe they'll talk to each other.
Oh.
That's
Oh,
Leah.
River, come here.
She's a rescue pet.
Well, I have to show off mine then.
Oh yeah. I wish they could have a Zoom call. All the pets. Oh.
I feel like I'm missing someone's screen.
Oh, you have to push the arrow button.
Like
You see the
switch
arrow
to
button on the far right?
arrow, not the gallery.
Oh, hi.
Everyone.
How are you?
Hey,
Hello there.
what are you doing on this?
I thought I'd learn about social media. I need all the links I can get.
He wants a shout out.
Julie, hi.
Okay, so it's 6 o'clock, so let's get started. I'm really excited to learn about how social media can help authors and writers and share those insights with all the people who are able to tune in. This is an Authors Guild and Women's National Book Association panel discussion. And what I'd like everyone who's not a panelist to do is to mute yourself. So if you put your cursor down at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little microphone symbol. And if it's not already muted, please mute that, so that'll prevent background sounds from coming into the discussion. And my plan is that if you look down at that same row of icons, you'll see also a chat icon. And so once we get underway, you can ask questions through the chat feature, and then I will select from those and forward them to the panelists, so we can, that way all the participants can get their questions answered, and maybe some panelists will want to hang around and chat through various social media afterwards. So the Authors Guild, for those of you who aren't familiar, is an organization of people who, mainly people who write books, but it's been expanded recently to include other writers, people writing for magazines and literary journals and newspapers and websites. And historically, it's provided legal advice and advocacy in Washington. It's filed lawsuits, for example, when Google decided it wanted to put books online without paying copyright, without paying for the royalties. The Authors Guild sued Google for that. I just got like, well, a little over a year ago, I got like $15,000 for magazines having put my work online without getting permission through the Authors Guild and the American Society of Journalists and Authors lawsuit. So there's that, and then it's providing now these local meetings where we can meet each other. Of course, this was originally planned to be at Book Passage, and so I want to do a shout out to Book Passage for promoting it and for offering to host. And independent bookstores are really going to suffer, I think, in the next few weeks and maybe months. So look for them online, see if you can buy your books through them. There's a new website called bookshops.com, I think it is, that you can, the 10% of the proceeds go to bookshops, and the prices are comparable to Amazon. So that's one place you can go to help out.
It's bookshop.org.
Okay, it's bookshop.org. Okay, thanks. Elise, would you like to say a little bit about Women's National Book Association?
Yes, I will. Am I unmuted? Yes.
You are unmuted.
Okay, so hi, I'm the Vice President of Women's National Book Association San Francisco chapter, and we are a national organization that was established in New York in 1917, so we're over 100 years old, and we are supporting women in the literary world and books to connect, educate, and advocate and lead in the world of words. We have chapters located in San Francisco, of course, Boston, Los Angeles, and all over the country. We're also a United Nations NGO. And we also support women and children's literacy. We give out several awards, one every 2 years, and one we give to independent book stores.
Great. So those are the sponsors. And so let's just plunge in. I would like each of the panelists to tell us a little story about how social media has helped them, because I think that it's something that we as writers struggle with sometimes, feeling confident that the time we invest in learning how to use social media and actually using social media is actually helping us. So I thought it'd be really nice if each of you could just in 1 minute kind of give an example of something that has happened when you've been using social media that's helped your careers as writers. Yeah, you want to
I'll
start?
start. So the San Francisco Foundation no longer has this program, but they used to have a literary award that was, you were eligible for it by nomination only, so you could not apply for it directly. And I had never heard of it, and one day I got a letter from them saying that I had been nominated for the award. It used to be $2,000. And I had no idea who had nominated me for it. So I went ahead and put the application in, and then after the awards were announced, which was at the end of July, I had asked the panel if they could tell me who had nominated me. And it was a name that I didn't recognize at all. And I reached out to her. I found her on LinkedIn and wanted to thank her for nominating me. And I asked her, how did she even find out about me? And she said she'd been following my career on LinkedIn, and I had links to several pieces I had written, and she had read those, and she had been reading them for a while. And so without even knowing me, she had nominated me for this award, which I never would have heard of without LinkedIn.
Maybe I'll go next.
Yeah.
So I got my first relationship with Harvard Business Review because I was blogging on my own blog, shared it digitally, had a couple conversations with people. That conversation just kept going on Twitter for probably like a day and a half. And somewhere in there, an editor who had been looking at my work sporadically really loved the approach, the sort of the tone and conversations and the depth of the conversation, and was tracking along, and then offered me a column. And that column led to my second book being published with Harvard.
Wow, that's a great story. I'm realizing that I didn't do proper introductions here, so I'm just going to back up a little bit. Introduced the Authors Guild, and we introduced Women's National Book Association, but I didn't introduce myself. So I am the organizer for the Authors Guild in the Bay Area. I'm also a member and vice chair in the Writers Grotto, and I call myself a genre non-conforming writer because I've written poetry and journalism and fiction, essays for newspapers. I've worked in radio and video. Right now I'm working on a novel that explores alternative realities in physics and literature. So Lisette, who spoke first, is a writer, editor, and creative writing workshop instructor. Her work reflects the periracial social and economic experiences of African Americans and others. Nilofer, who spoke second, is a tech executive of 25 years, is the author of 3 nonfiction books, Reshaping Work to Create More Value by Valuing Each of Us, And she was named one of the top 50 management thinkers of our time by Thinkers 50 and top 10 human resources thinkers by HR Magazine. And she's given a TED Talk that's been cited 300 million times. Is that correct?
Mhm.
300 million, wow. And then Naomi wrote the book Island of a Thousand Mirrors, which won the 2013 Commonwealth Book Prize for the Asian region. And she found both her agent and first publisher through Facebook. Then Elise Marie Collins has consulted with small businesses, authors, and alumni associations on social media marketing, and believes that a social media plan should be intuitive, fun, and seamless. She's taught yoga for the past 20 years. Is the author of several books on healthy living, including Super Ager, You Can Look Younger, Have More Energy, a Better Memory, and Live a Long Life, a Long and Healthy Life. Okay, so having done the introductions, I would like to continue with your anecdotes. So Elise, would you like to jump in? It looks like you're muted, Elise.
Okay. I don't have a specific story that's as, I really like those two stories. They inspired me. And that's why I'm on this call. I don't have a specific story, but I constantly sort of meet people on social media, and I have just gotten many podcasts, gotten my book and my workout in podcasts and Facebook Lives. So there's not something as interesting as an award, or I love those two stories. They inspired me. I'm also a yoga teacher, so I think a lot of people find my workshops through social media, and I know that it's kind of a a cumulative effect. And because I'm out there in the public, I get a lot of feedback where people said, "Oh, I saw that post on social media. I saw what you said." And I often have no idea who's seen my posts, but when I see them in class or in a workshop, they tell me. And I think a lot of us as authors, we also have other live events that we do. So I can speak to that on this panel.
Great. And Naomi, can you tell us something about your successes with social media?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say before we start, I want to acknowledge that this is a really tough moment for everyone, and I'm really happy to be here with all of you. It's a strange moment. We're all navigating it together, and it's just nice to be with other writers and creative folks and be like, okay, this is a way we can come together and discuss this particular part of our lives, which is, I find it so incredibly ironic that, we're talking about social media at this moment when our panel has been brought into the social media space. So I want to acknowledge that and thank everyone for being here. And my story is quite interesting. I, like most novelists, I'm a novelist. I have 2 books out and I'm finishing up a 3rd. Like most writers, I'm a pretty introverted personality, except when I have to go out and talk to hundreds of people and, hawk my book. But I found social media sort of like interesting in the way that you can articulate and engage with the world in this way that is like separated, right? But you can build community. And to tell you my quick story, I started writing my first novel in 2001, right after 9/11, finished it in 2010, tried to sell it all over America, and I just got sort of like refusals upon refusals from every house. And then eventually, this is where Facebook comes in. Of course, I started writing a second book because that's what you do. But in the course of this like long journey, I reconnected with a childhood friend who lived in Sri Lanka on Facebook. And she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm trying to, publish my book." And she said, "Oh, I have these like publishing friends in Sri Lanka. I'm from Sri Lanka. The book is originally part of it is set in Sri Lanka. Why don't you try them? So I wrote to them. They said yes. They took my book. I signed away my world rights to them, which it sort of unfolded interestingly. But then they printed. I think they made 1,000 copies. It was a small printing. And then the book won all these international awards. It won the Commonwealth for Asia. It was up for the DSC, was up for the Northern California Book Prize. All of these things happened, but because it came out of this small publishing house in Sri Lanka, then American editors became interested. Like all those editors that had said no to me, then had a bidding war for exactly the same book. That absolutely happened because of my Facebook conversation with my friend. That's the first exciting thing. And then the second thing, fast forwarding about 5 or 6 years, I didn't have an agent at that time. I was between agents, and this woman messaged me on Facebook and said, "Do you need an agent?" "Yes, who are you?" And it was the woman who is the foreign rights acquisition agent for Trident Media. And she put me in touch with my agent who is with Trident, which, is this strange way to get an agent. But I'm saying all of this because I think the point is, and we'll get into this more, is that my Facebook page has become a hub or a sort of like literary salon, and I built it that way, almost sort of organically. So I have a lot of writers and a lot of like editors and agents on there, and I've sort of built that over time, almost sort of accidentally. So that's my little story.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I want to point out that nobody said they got a book deal by just promoting their book on Twitter. Nobody tweeted, "Read my book," and then as a result, they got a book deal. So it illustrates that there's some subtlety to all of this. So I have some specific questions. For example, I noticed, Lisa, as I've known you over the years, that you have a particular interest, particular focus in LinkedIn, and I wondered if you could tell us why that platform has been more important for you than others.
So for whatever reason, that platform is the one I'm most active on. Well, maybe LinkedIn and Twitter together. And then Facebook, I'm not very active on. And Alignable, I'm fairly active on, but I like LinkedIn because it's marketed as a professional or as a platform for professionals, and artists tend to think, well, we're creative and so we're not professionals, and I disagree with that. I think that we are creative and professional. So when I put my platform out there, my profile, there weren't a lot of artists on there, but now there are many. And I mean, there are musicians, there are authors, there are composers, theater people, photographers. I've seen magicians on there. So all kinds of artists are on there now. And I've noticed, especially when I'm applying for grants and funding awards, that the committees are looking you up on LinkedIn. So they're expecting you to have a professional profile on there. And just by dint of having a profile, you're showing that, yes, I'm an artist, but I also understand that being a writer is a business, if you're serious about it. And you can actually look and see when someone from such and such residency was looking at your application or looking at your profile 2 months ago, or so-and-so from such and such foundation was looking at your profile 3 hours ago, and so on. So I know that they are looking, and I like it. I think it's pretty flexible. You know, they do some things that are kind of annoying, such as changing their interface without telling anyone until the next time you log in and things like that, moving buttons around and then not giving us a heads up. But I like the platform, and I feel like I have strong connections on there. I'm more into quality of connections and quantity. So I do vet, the invitations that come in. But it's been very good for me. I know you asked us to tell just the one anecdote, but I have several that I could tell that come directly out of LinkedIn.
Great. And Nilofer, I was curious how you managed to get to, you have, I think, 500K links on LinkedIn and 55K followers on Twitter. How did that come about?
So I tend to be like an information junkie. Like a lot of authors, I tend to read a lot. My joke with my husband is always, I read the internet so you don't have to. And because he's always like sending me links like 3 days after I've already read it and shared it and stuff. I'm like, dude, I was there. And so it's just this really funny relationship I've always had to reading. And so for LinkedIn, I started sharing things that I thought were interesting to the professional network. And just, you know, as I was reading, like I would basically sort it like, oh, that would be helpful to my friends professionally, and post it there or do a comment on it there. And mostly it was just about sharing good content. And then in the Twitter universe, it was much more about, you know, the box on Twitter says it all. It says, what's news? And so being able to just do commentary, good, bad, and different, like have an opinion as you post things. And that has just organically led, so it's not like I ever bought followers or tried to get people to follow me. It was literally just, I have this phrase I wrote about, I said, brand is the exhaust fume of the engine of your life. And I think about followers as being the people who are using you as a conduit for information or perspective. And so if you're already like me, like an information junkie, then you can play to your strength, whatever that strength is. And for each person, it's going to be different. And I think that's why people followed in. So instead of them reading the, I don't know, 80 newsletters I might get every morning, they can just see what interesting feed things are coming through there.
So it's almost like you're producing your own newsletter. You're aggregating content for your followers.
Yeah, I said to a friend of mine who was an executive, because of course my whole background's running operations, a friend of mine was like, this is such a waste of time. And I said, well, so just so you know, I read just over coffee. Like I'm not wasting I'm reading. I'm reading the news of the day just like I would if I was prepping for a client meeting. I was always much more aware of like industry moves. So it's just sort of like a bias I've had since I was young. And then I was like, so it doesn't take much for me to post a link and add a sentence. You know what I mean? So it's really just playing to, and everyone's got to figure out like, what's the thing you would naturally do if nobody else was looking kind of thing. And then figure out how to make that part of the digital side of your life too, if that's the thing you want to do.
Okay, great. Well,
Laird, can I also just add something?
yeah, of course.
It's also a way of building community.
Mhm.
For example, I post opportunities on there, even if they're not for me. I'm not a script writer, but I might see a script writing contest and post it on there. Or a poetry contest and post it on there. And I did do that once. And a friend of mine saw it and she said, oh, I saw that post on LinkedIn, I'll apply. And she wound up winning that contest.
That's great.
So it's also community building.
Absolutely. Naomi, you've focused mostly on Facebook, it sounds like. Is there a particular reason for that? Is there, like you said that you don't even use Twitter. So how did the choice of platforms come about for you?
Yeah, I think it was really organic. Just literally after the 2016 election, I couldn't look at my Twitter feed anymore. It was just too painful, which is probably a really bad idea considering that I probably have lots of folks I could be connected with. I just couldn't do it. I think I had to choose which social media platform to put myself onto, and I chose Facebook. And I want to say that it's not these are decisions, at least for me, maybe for other folks too, that it's not an easy decision, right? Like Facebook is also like a horrible, evil company that's stealing all our information and like really has messed with the politics of this country. And So I don't want to be like the person sort of championing Facebook at the same time that I'm saying that specifically in my career, it's been this really useful tool to build community more than anything else. And as I shared with you guys, like really, I did find a lot of professional success because of Facebook. But as Lizette said, I think the most important thing for me is that like incredible community that has come together. I don't have, the limit. It's my Facebook private page. It's my it's my friends page. It's not, I have an author page, but what I've talked about with a lot of authors is like, there's very little traffic on the author pages. People want to be your personal friend. So at this point, it's a small number. It's something like 4,000. And then I have like 500 pending. So I have to look through each of them before I say, yes, it's a like relatively small number. But what I find really like helpful and useful and powerful is like within that small number, I have writers that I couldn't have engaged with in any other way, right? Like people who, you read their book and you're like, holy shit, this is like incredible. How do I contact them? Oh, Facebook request. Okay, they actually respond, and then we have some kind of interaction and some kind of conversation. So that's been super, super powerful for me for like both reaching out to writers I would have no other way of contacting, and for like mentoring people, as Lizette said, posting competitions or when Vona comes around. Vona is the Writers of Color workshop that happens once a year. When that comes around, posting that and saying, you guys should apply. So I think it's most powerful in terms of building community.
Okay, so are you talking about a Facebook group that you created primarily? Is that your primary avenue for this interaction, or just your regular friends on Facebook?
No, it's just my regular Facebook page. So I will ask questions. Like often I'll say, who has a new book coming out? And then folks will like post. Right now, because so many debut authors are, have to cancel all their events, whose book is coming out? How can we support you? Where can we find it? Or usually it's around literary questions. I'll ask questions. It's a really good way to get engagement, is to ask people how they're feeling about certain things. What do you read? What are you reading right now that's blowing your mind? We'll sometimes have like 100 responses. Or, just right now in this moment, how are you feeling? Are you okay? How are you dealing? That kind of thing, just to like I feel like I've curated my page to be like very, very soft and welcoming and nice. And maybe we'll get into like how to deal with trolls and whatnot, but I've been pretty lucky so far.
Great. Elise, you talk about making social media intuitive, fun, and seamless. And I think not all writers have that experience. So how do you make that happen? You're muted again.
There we go. Yeah, I would just second a lot of things that I heard. I have a similar routine to Nilofer. I wake up, I do meditate and practice yoga. And then after I do a few more things, I go down and I read the news in various forms, and I do the same thing. I kind of curate different things that I'm going to post for the day. I'm a weird combination of information junkie and mindfulness, spiritual junkie. So I'm a spiritual junkie and an information junkie. And I think that is what the trick is, just finding what you really love, whatever it is, and then just building that into your routine, whether it's over a coffee or you do it at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, but you want to make it fun for you. So you want to engage. I saw Naomi wrote something about pet memes. I think whatever you like to see, like put that out to your people. It's not about putting out some image. It's about what you enjoy, because people are going to be there for you as a person. I always think of social media like a party. Some people say, oh, I don't want to do social media because I don't want to have to be fake. Well, when you go to a party, it's not like you go, I'm going to be fake. You just kind of put on your party game face, you show up, like we kind of put on some lipstick for this, and you show up with your best self, right? It's not about trying to be someone you're not, and that's going to waste your time. I mean, it's going to waste your energy. So that is my number one tip. And I would also add to that, that find the medium that you like, or the platform rather, that you like. So someone in the chat box was asking about Instagram. Is it better for younger people under 50 and Facebook? I'll read the whole thing. I have heard that Instagram is better for younger people under 50 and that Facebook is for older folks, not many younger people on Facebook. Would you agree? And I agree with Nilofer. Am I saying your name right?
You did. Thanks.
Okay. Nilofer said it's great for visual presentation, but I don't think it's about age in 2020. I have a specific page called Super Ager that's all about aging and inspiring older adults. And that's a huge thing, older adults on Instagram. So I don't think, I think it's more about what you like to do. If you like to take pictures, you like to post visual things, Instagram. I always say Twitter is about talking to strangers. I love talking to strangers. I'm that person that, you know, talks to my Lyft driver the entire time, or I'm on the bus and I suddenly know everyone on the bus. So that might not be you. Maybe like Naomi was saying, she doesn't want to be there because she sees there is a lot of trolls on Twitter, I have to say. But there's a lot of interesting people and it's really easy to strike up a conversation. And I have met many interesting and wonderful people that I share things with. Recently, just for an example, there's someone who's in quarantine with her grandparents because I'm into the healthy aging and I'm a gerontologist. There's this young woman, she's gotten a lot of press coverage, but I always have conversations with her now every day. And she's in quarantine at Travis Air Force Base with her grandparents. And she's always posting great photos of them, what they're doing every day. And Twitter's the kind of place where I can just chat with her and I see, oh, she read my post. I saw her grandparents dancing. I saw this and that. So I like it for that reason, because I love to interact with people like I'm out there in public.
So great. Yeah, those are all really good ways of looking at these different platforms. Is anybody making use of Instagram? Well, we mentioned Instagram, but some of the newer ones are TikTok and Snapchat. New platforms crop up frequently, and so what approach do you all take to these newer opportunities?
Well, when like Google Plus first started, I was one of the first people. I just happened to be sort of, I don't know, focused on it for a little bit. And I got 4 million followers because I was one of the few people who was posting. And honest to God, I think it was that was like, there was nobody else to pay attention to kind of thing. And I think it was, and I really used video, so I shared video assets because that tended to do well there. And so even though it's sort of gone dormant, I learned, I think that was probably the first time where I realized each platform is super suited for a different kind of piece of content. So like news links do better on Twitter, especially ones that have like a graphic display from like The Guardian or whatever, that know how to do that. And then, digital storytelling. I have a girlfriend who's an artist who does these beautiful stories with a visual, and she's an artist, so she really loves it. And she has quite a few followers because she's just thinks in that medium. And so it's thinking about what is the medium and then what's the message, and trying to figure out, like, of those things, what excites you in terms of what you want to share, right? Like Naomi was talking about Facebook really affectionately, and I dumped Facebook a while ago. And I'm in these like much broader, and I purposely, what's the right way of saying it? I felt like I was talking to the same old people when I was on Facebook. And it was like clients from like 10 years ago when I was doing an operating role, and it had no real relevancy to sort of the other things I was doing. And so I found myself like, and then of course I got lots of trolling behavior. And so I finally just was like, one day I was like, okay, this is one I'm willing to shut down. And so it's just figuring out like what brings you energy, right? I think that's the point all of us are basically coming back to.
Yeah, it's going to be different for different people.
I haven't done TikTok. Have any of you guys done TikTok? Yeah, like I haven't gone there and I haven't done Snapchat. Anybody done Snapchat? Yeah.
No, I think I'm on Snapchat, but I was thinking for this time at home, we'll call it. I did download TikTok because I thought maybe I'll try it, especially because a lot of yoga teachers, a lot of my classes are going to go online. So I figured I better, this will be a time when I have extra moments to steady up,
Yeah, and I think there's also geographic difference too. Like I was in the country of Bhutan for a while, and WhatsApp is really big there. And even though it's mainly a texting platform, it's also used in groups. So so I started using WhatsApp a lot more, and then since coming back to the US, I've hardly used it at all. And also in Bhutan, they use WeChat, which is a Chinese thing. So I suppose if you're trying to reach an audience in a specific country, it's worth researching which platforms are used by which demographic in that country. So I was also, I appreciate Naomi acknowledging the times that we're in and how this epidemic is changing really everything that we're doing. And I wondered, has it had specific impact on the approach that any of our panelists are taking to what they're doing on social media? Does it feel like you're doing something qualitatively different, or is it just that you're spending more time on it because you're stuck at home? What is the impact of this been on your social media activity?
I mean, for me, I'm just using it more because I'm at home, so I'm on it more and constantly looking to see what has changed with respect to COVID-19. But I'm also trying to share ways that people can feel connected still to a writing or an artistic community. So for example, I'm encouraging my students to, this is a great time to do submissions. You can write and you can read, but this is a great time to also send work out. So I posted the other night on LinkedIn a list of places where people can submit for grants and for publishing and for residencies. And I've gotten a lot of Twitter followers since this all started. I'm not quite sure why. It might be because I was extremely active during AWP, and I think that might be why. But other than that, I'm not doing anything really differently.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything particularly differently either, but one of the things that I've always done is almost explored an idea for a little bit before it became an article or before it became a book. So I'll just find myself paying attention to something for a while and then paying attention more to it. So in the last few weeks, I've been noticing what businesses are doing right by people. And by right, it's United not penalizing people when they had to cancel airfare. It's companies providing, Microsoft provided unlimited pay to every single person, even if they were hourly workers. So for the first time, a tech company didn't go by the caste system of who they took care of and who they didn't. And so I was sharing some of those stories. I'm purposely not sharing the negative stories. I'm like really paying attention to who's doing the right thing. And then I was just in conversation with the Harvard editor team and said, I don't know if any of these things strike you as important, but it strikes me as important and I'm motivated by it. And so I don't even have to be the one to write it. Like I'm really being clear, like I'm not pitching you, but if it's exciting to you, here's some examples. And because I thought that would, bring our head above water and I always focus on the light, it's Mr. Rogers, focus on the helpers. I'm like, who's helping right now? And so I'm inspired by that. And they wrote me back saying, no, could you please, please cover that story. and we'll probably have that out tomorrow. And it's not that I feel like that's an especially important thing. I mean, I've always done that. That's what I'm saying. I've always like looked for rhythms and used that sort of dance between the community and seeing like who else is seeing things and then having them play it off each other. And I just think this is an opportunity to kind of get more in touch, more in community, you know, through these hard times, right?
How about you, Naomi? If as the epidemic affected what you're doing on your Facebook?
It's made me really aware of how addicted I am to my phone in
Yeah.
a sort of terrifying and horrible way. Yeah, I think I'm on it more. I'm finding solace, I think, in being connected in this way as we're not seeing each other face to face, being connected with this large number of strangers and people I know. And I think just to echo what everybody else is saying, I think it is, you know, like everything else, it can be used for bad or good, right? And I think it's a tool that I think what's coming out of this is the amount of time that we have all spent thinking about these issues and sort of like curating pages. And it's not something that happens overnight. Like Nilofer was talking about, a lot of curated time spent thinking about the trends and the threads of what's happening, and then making spaces where people feel like they can come and speak about what's going on. So in the last couple of days, I think I've sort of made my page like a place people can come and talk about, like, what's it like to be going through this thing together? What is your mental health state? You know, how is it having the kids at home? I've made it a safe space for people to talk about that stuff. But that's something that's been going on for a really long time. And it also means that I've like curated carefully, like the people that can be there and come together. So it feels very much like a safe community.
Yeah, that sounds like a real service. I'm wondering also specifically about book tours. I don't know if any of us have books that are launching right now, but maybe our panelists have advice for people who were planning book tours for spring and suddenly are seeing all of their events canceled.
I could say something. There's somebody also, Judy is asking how social media, how does it actually sell books? How has social media affected sales of your books? And I think of it as all of the things that we're doing, we're cultivating people interested in our work. We're all in different realms. And the more that we sort of gather people, whether it's on our Facebook page, Facebook group, Twitter feed, we have to gather people for either in person, which is not happening now, or our online events. And then those people become interested just as you would do a signing. They see your book several times and then they buy it. I can't say exactly how many people buy my book because of my social media presence, but I'm constantly, again, interacting between my yoga classes and social media and book events. So I'm always seeing that person to person, and then that is fed by people seeing what I'm doing, where I am in the community. And now more than ever, because so many things are online, if I didn't have as much presence on social media, I wouldn't be able to promote this event. Or now all the yoga studios are shut down, gyms are shut down. So my other job that I do that ties in with my writing is I can do it only from my home, from, you know, using a camera like this. So the social media helps me to build that up. And now more people that didn't see me in the individual studios can find me online, and then maybe they'll buy my book. So I think it's like a kind of a difficult one to quantify, but maybe some of the other panels can quantify how they've specifically sold books. But to me, it's just a building process, just like you network and you grow your business, like everybody's been talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So if we just think about it as a marketing funnel and we think classic, there's awareness, there's consideration, there's trial, there's purchase, there's post-purchase adoption, right? There's sharing that happens after that where you do referral. Social can be a part of all of those things. And sometimes what we obsess with when we have a book launch, and certainly one of the things I always tell all my close friends who are authors, I go, okay, the one thing no one ever says to you is don't give a shit. Like, do not care about the sales and just like let that one go because it will drive you insane. Focus instead of, are you telling the story of why you wrote the book? Are you talking to and connecting with the community of people that you wrote it for? Are you finding ways to explore that idea more deeply with them, right? Like all the different ways in which you can engage. Do those other things because first of all, that will probably bring you way more joy. And no one likes that. At least let me say it that way, say it personally. I don't believe anyone really wants anyone to be hawking anything anywhere. Like most of us have probably received the COVID-19 notifications, like the 2 bazillion emails in the last few days. And all of us are just going, oh my God, if I ever cared about your brand, I don't care about it anymore, right? We're just like, please don't talk to me about this thing in this superfluous way. That's sort of their stress response. And it's sort of what we as authors are doing when we're trying to get to that momentary sale process. And like, we're like, please buy it right now. You know? And I'm like, okay, chill it out. Books have long lives. And in fact, my book is doing better in year 3 than it is in year 1. And that to me is much more a sign of people getting it because it's a huge idea. It's a tectonic framework shift. People getting it, people sharing it, and having that conversation that I'm not even privileged to, you know, and so I like to just kind of expand our horizon to think about how we talk about the book. Because sometimes also authors do, God bless us all. I'm sure I've done it, so I'm probably making fun of myself when I'm saying this, but I'm sure I've done that. I've got a new book out. And God bless us, like nobody cares, right? And what we really want to talk about is like, what problem are you trying to solve? And what are the genres it's in? And like, there's a whole bunch of other ways we can engage people that is less about like this thing being shoved in someone's face. Does that help? The sales cycle?
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. Is there anything that, if let's say you're, and this question is for any of our panelists, if your book had just come out, you had, 10 different bookstore readings that you were going to do, and now they're all canceled. Is there anything specific that you could do to take the place of those events involving social media?
I'm full of ideas. So
I mean, I know that on Twitter, there are people who are organizing online public readings. So the readings that they were going to do in person at bookstores or community centers, they're going to be doing it on Twitter. And there are a number of people who started asking for, do you have a book coming out now? And if so, can you send it to me? And I'm going to, I don't know what they're going to do with the list, but publicize it in some manner. And there's been a lot of that. There was a trickle a couple of weeks ago, and now there are quite a few threads like that. Writers trying to support other writers and saying, if you have a book coming out now and everything that you were planning to do has been canceled, send me your title. And I will, add it to my list, blah, 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 and I will retweet it, etc. That actually also started doing AWP, but there's a lot of that type of activity on Twitter that I'm seeing now.
The simplest thing you can do is do a reading, like short reading on Instagram. They have these little videos and people, it's surprising how short little videos really do connect with people. So that's easy without anyone having to make it perfect. In fact, I have a friend who, I have a list of, and I'm happy to share it with you guys, but I have a list of things I always recommend to all my good friends. Like it's, which is not the digital world. It's like my immediate circle. And I'm always like, one of the things you can do is literally think about how to voice your own body of work out there. And so one of my friends just literally did the first 10 pages of her book one day at a time, literally read the first 10 pages. And it drove so many sales because it was literally, it's the opening story. It's you're always sharing why you wrote the book. So read why you wrote the book. You know, you've already done the work, like read it out loud, and it really connected with people.
I mean, I'll just add that this is a moment where people are looking for books to read.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's one of the few things folks can do. So yeah, just to echo what everybody else said, what I'm seeing is a lot of people reading books on pages online or doing Instagram Live, Facebook Live, Twitter. And then writers are saying, like I have a thread right now, like, do you have a book coming out? What's your title? And then there's like tons and tons, and then people are looking at that. So I think we're trying to support each other as best we can, because we know how heartbreaking that would be to have a book about to come out and just have everything shut down. I mean, I cannot imagine what that must feel like, especially a debut novelist or a debut writer at all, just to have everything, you know, like your dream has come true and then
Yeah.
no, not so much. I mean, I can't imagine how heartbreaking that is on top of everything else. So, you know, if that's your situation, I'm so, so sorry. And then hopefully from here, we can learn how to build these platforms that will help us all through this. I mean, I think the other thing is like, we might have to get really used to using these platforms. It might be a while, right? Like we don't know what the time frame is. So this is like probably the moment where we start understanding how to use these things.
I really like your point, Naomi, that books could have a special appeal right now, that we all could really take advantage of this hiatus to curl up with a good book.
You know,
Comforting for writers.
Whenever I'm suffering, which lately I lost my whole spring revenue, so I earn all my money from speaking, not from my book deal stuff. Well, let's put it this way, I spent my book deal stuff a while ago. So I earn my money now from speaking, and my spring schedule got canceled, and I started feeling, you know, woe is me compared to blah, blah, blah. And I realized actually, like, as soon as I start back in service, I changed my attention to the right things. So I offered, can I do loneliness consult for people? And I just started thinking of ways to engage that was of service. And that put my attention back in the right place. And the reason I mention it is I think at a time like this, we can say, instead of making it about our book, we can say, let me help you find a book you might like. Tell me what kind of book you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And most of us are really well read compared to the average Joe. And so we could, you know, be of service, right? So just think about at a time when we're all individually suffering, it doesn't help to focus on the suffering. It helps to figure out how to help the commons, and that can, I think, will ultimately help us too. Certainly I feel better every time I do, you know, service. So that could be a way for you to just engage readers.
There's also a gentleman on Monday night on Twitter who started a Twitter book club, and you sign up for it, and then he's going to have people vote on which book it should be, and they're going to meet on Twitter to do this book club.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you find a way to send us the link, that would be great, or the Twitter handle. So I think one of my inspirations for this panel was a sense of futility that I think a lot of writers have about social media, that we get the message from our fellow writers and from our agents and others in the industry that we really need to be doing a lot of social media, and then we open various accounts and we tweet and we post, and then nothing seems to happen. And you all have given some really good ideas about how to engage and build our following, not really focus specifically on book sales, but I'm wondering how you gauge the amount of time that you're spending on social media, and what's the right amount? How do you know? I mean, there has to be at least some unconscious analysis of a return on investment when you're doing anything really related to your career. So how can you figure out how much time to spend?
I'll take that one. You know, honestly, I don't think about it. Maybe this is the wrong place to say this, but I don't think about it as like building my career. I think about it as engaging with readers and writers. And so I don't think really about book sales. I don't think about the way that my posting might translate to book sales. It just doesn't work that way. The way that it works is I might post something interesting and someone might say, oh, why don't you come and talk about that? Why don't you come and do a reading here? Why don't you come be on my social media panel? So it's super, super organic, and I don't know how to qualify it or I don't know how to quantify it more than that, except I find it really a powerful force in my life to connect with people. And I think that then spreads to, like Nilofer was saying, why did you write this book? Because you wanted to talk about these certain things, you were passionate about this. And then you wrote it and you put it out, and then people are engaging with that, and then you are engaging with them, and it sort of spreads in this like very organic way. So I think that if you do it in a different way, if you do it sort of for book sales or more strategically, I think people can tell that you're trying to sell something, which is the unfortunate thing. Like, I wish, if I said, here's a link to my book, buy it, with nothing other, I don't know. I don't think it works that way. I think it has to be like, people trust me and then they'll recommend the book to their friend or something. But yeah, I think you have to build a relationship, or you have to build your own like persona on the platform or something. It's much more organic.
Do any of you feel a tension between the time that you're spending on social media and the time that you're spending writing? So how do you negotiate that? Like, if you're, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, you realize you've done nothing but, post on Facebook, and you haven't worked on your novel at all, then, how do you figure that out?
I mean, for myself, I teach this to my students, I have a literary calendar that I follow. And as part of that calendar, I set aside specific blocks of time on specific days for doing administrative stuff. That's not the fun, sexy part of writing, but the business administration stuff. So that's catching up on LinkedIn posts, catching up on posts on Alignable. No one mentioned Alignable. I don't know if anybody's on that one. And Twitter, answering emails, researching places to submit to, even time to read my trade magazines like the Poets and Writers or the Writers Chronicle. So it's booked into my literary calendar, and that's a good way for me, at least, to control it for myself. And that doesn't mean if something exciting happens or something sad happens, like a famous author passes, that I won't spend some time tweeting about that. But the bulk of it, I try to keep to those times that I've slotted specifically for social media on my calendar.
How much time would you all say that you spend on social media on the average day?
I just wanted to backtrack because when Naomi said, I know I said that in my little bio, was intuitive, instinctual, that she really spoke to that, just following your instincts, because people want to hear your authentic reactions. So I want to underscore that. And I also like Lizette talking about the calendar, because I think we need both. I think we need that sort of flowy, I'm just going to feel through it. And then also having a kind of a schedule is helpful for me, because especially in the past week, I found myself, like many of us have, just kind of like, what's happening next? Let me check. And then I'm like, so sometimes I'll set a timer, like real simple, especially when I feel like I'm either under a deadline or, I've got something else. A timer will help me set a timer. Sometimes I do Pomodoro. Anybody do those? You can do like 25 minutes of a very specific task, and then 5 minutes of, then you could go on social media for 5 minutes and just have at it, but then you're off.
Cool.
Wait, what is that? Pomodoro?
It's a technique, I think, where you just have I actually just downloaded an app on my phone. It's called like, you could just look up Pomodoro. There's a lot of Pomodoro apps and they'll take you through. I find it really good for writing deadlines because I just do 25 minutes of writing, 5 minutes, I'll just, stretch or go get a cup of tea. The one I've been using is, where is it? Focus to Do. And you can actually keep track of the thing, you could keep track of your literary calendar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
So I have other questions, but I'd really like to open it up more to the audience here. One of the questions I see here from Ann Busho is, do you have an author website? And if so, how do you use it that is different from social media? Anybody want to take that one?
Sure. In fact, when I saw the Authors Guild actually did website development, I was like, damn, I wish I knew that before I'd done all my own work. That would have been such a useful asset, because it takes, I over invested, but I think about it as the repository. So I never want to have a Wikipedia page that could be edited by someone else and potentially trolled on by other people. I control my own content by having my own name and my own domain. And then I look at it as a repository of, if you want to know anything about me, it's all in one place. So I haven't deleted one blog post in 15 years, so it's embarrassing to go back. But it's every idea as it's developed. And then my content's organized by talks and also by like the big ideas I've had over the time. So it's like every few years I'll go back and just spend a couple $1,000 with a designer and tune it all up and see if it can mostly reflect current day. And then it gets outdated almost immediately, and that's fine. Like I view it just as like, here's where to find things. And then the call to action is, for me, right, they can buy a book. They can hire me as a speaker. So I just have a couple, they can join a newsletter. So I make all those just super accessible. I don't have one call to action. But I think about that as being the sort of perma state, effectively, right? Like a book is to our like little posts, and then social is more just as we're going. And sometimes, of course, I'll link to stuff on my site, but it's today versus more the catalog.
Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do I talk too businessy? Sorry about that.
I mean, on my site, I do have an Authors Guild site, and
Yeah, how'd that go?
I use it to list like upcoming appearances, upcoming readings, and upcoming workshops, as well as there's a bio on there and a few snippets of writing samples from pieces I've done. And what else is on there? Oh, and photos of myself at different events, different conferences, things like that. And also I have a section where I'm collecting events from other colleagues of mine who are having readings or a book launch or something like that. And I have an announcement page for that as well.
Somebody's got a child in the background. If they could mute their their mic, that would be helpful. We also had a question about Amazon author pages and Wikipedia pages. Is that something that you all have put attention on?
So my research says that women and people of color get trolled pretty hard on Wikipedia pages, and it gets edited pretty hard, and our information's not controlled. I've had people at Wikipedia tell me that, all the data behind it. So I have purposely not sought that out. So maybe I'm being too cautious, but there are certain moments where I really do try to cordon off ways in which people can make my life more difficult. Just like, so if I can avoid that and avoid the drama of somebody then writing some shit about me that I can't control, then I will not do that. And it especially happens to women and people of color from the data that Wikipedia has. So I've personally cleared, but that may not be the right thing for other people.
I actually got trolled recently by somebody saying that I don't even know. They got my email and said, I think you need a Wikipedia page. And I'm sure they were going to charge me something. But I also wanted to talk about, I was at this workshop a few years ago, I forget what, Wikimedia or something. It was actually, there's groups in, oops, what happened? Oh, somehow my screen just, oh, it went to this, sorry, I got confused. Anyway, there's activists in London and England that are, I don't know if they're here, but I did a session where everybody sat and we worked on women artists. It was like a whole big group of people, and this woman was awesome. She taught us how to do Wikimedia, and it was so much fun. And I haven't had time to do that since, but there's networks of people that go out and specifically put women and people of color on Wikipedia, but there's just not enough of them. And they were asking, I'll try to send it out to everybody, but it was a really amazing workshop at the Wellcome Museum in London about maybe 2 years ago almost.
I'm sharing our Twitter handles and other links here. If I've done it successfully, that's what's showing up on your screens. A list of social media links for everybody. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, so you've mentioned trolls, and I wonder, it's news to me that it's a particular problem on Wikipedia. I would have guessed more on Twitter. But I'm wondering if this has been an issue for any of you in particular. Have you had to deal with trolling?
I mean, I myself have really not, but I mean, I vet all of my connections. I'm not a knee-jerk connector. I don't just follow everyone back who follows. And I don't accept all the invitations on Facebook or LinkedIn. So I do vet people's profiles. And I don't know if that helps keep the trolls under some sort of control or what. Or maybe they're, more frequent on Facebook, which I don't use a lot of. So it could also be that. Maybe they're more frequent on other profiles that I'm not using as much.
I've been pretty lucky. I think it's just maybe luck. And also I've been doing the same thing, which is I really curate who I add. So I usually only add people if I have something like 50 to 100 friends in common. If I have something like 400 friends in common, then clearly it's another writer or, an MFA student or somebody like that, somebody in the industry. So then that's easy. But if it's less than 50 people, I'm pretty suspect unless their page looks like they're a writer, they have a book coming out, and then I understand why they want to be in contact with me. But and then I will block. To be really honest, most of the people on my page are women, and it seems, I don't know, I do that on purpose because I think it keeps a lot of the sort of sexist, misogynistic trolling out. And I have lots of friends who have been the object of that, and I'm not interested. So I do curate very heavily, and on my posts, I'd say when people comment, it's about 80 to 90% women commenting, which it's, it works out well. So far, so good.
Yeah. Well, that brings up another question that I've had. I've struggled with a little bit, which is I've often gotten the advice to be a little bit confessional, to be intimate, to be vulnerable on social media, that this is a way of engaging. People can relate to you more as a human being if you do that. But it also makes me feel exposed when I do that. And I wonder if that's something that you all have experienced or wrestled with at all, this sort of feeling like there's a pressure to talk more about your personal life than you actually want to.
I mean, I'll take that. I think because I've curated my page pretty carefully, I feel relatively comfortable saying some personal and intimate things. There's a lot I won't say. There's a lot I won't reveal about my life, obviously. But I feel okay. I feel like I trust the folks that are on my page. And so far it's gone really well. And I think people do connect with the more vulnerable, intimate posts. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is something that everybody has to sort of gauge for themselves, right? Like, how much do you want to share? At what point does it feel uncomfortable? Like, you certainly shouldn't do it because you hope that it will get you followers or that it will lead to more people being interested in what you're doing. But if it's something you want to share, like the Me Too movement, when the Me Too movement happened, like so many women were going on social media and saying, this happened to me, this happened to me. And we were breaking silences about these things that had happened that a lot of us had felt a lot of shame around. And then suddenly it was okay because lots of people were talking about it. And I think that was like incredibly powerful. Or at some point I wrote a piece about I had an abortion when I was 24, and I wrote a piece about that. And when I posted about it, there was this feeling of like, wow, this is a vulnerable piece to have out there. But then women started posting about their own experience with that and the like incredible sort of shaming and silencing that happens around that specific act, and also, women's bodies in general. And that felt very powerful. So I think you have to negotiate it and navigate it for yourself, but being intimate and vulnerable can also be a really powerful connecting thing in social media. Oh, kitty. Oh, doggy.
So any other questions from the audience? For those of you who don't know how to use the chat feature, if you look at the bottom of your screen where our faces appear, you'll see a little chat icon, and if you click on that, it gives you an opportunity to post a question.
Hey, somebody asked about, is it podcasts versus blogs? So are people still reading blogs as much as they used to? And my kid says, Mom, it's the podcast. And I think that question is sort of underlying is where should I spend my energy promoting and doing things? The way I think about it is, what's the format that works best for you? So if you're into prose and you love prose, you're going to find other people who love prose. If that's what your gift is, right? Lead with that. I do because I get so much inbound requests for stuff, I just have like a slot, and then basically it's first come, first serve for who gets that slot based on certain criteria, right? And then that way I'm not overspending. So to your earlier point, Laird, about do you ever feel like you're over investing in stuff? I make sure that I contain the containers that need to be contained. So promotion crap can overtake your whole life, so you're not actually doing the creative work. So promotion crap has to be contained. So like there's certain windows of time, God bless them. Like, if you can fit those windows, you can get me on a podcast. If you want whatever, right? Like a series of things, if you want to interview me. And then because that lets you manage the big rocks. And so I think I do podcasts because I know it's a different form of communication. It's a different way of engaging people. We're going to see like 3,000 podcasts get produced this next 6 weeks. And yet I used to joke about, we're totally saturated. And as of this week, I'm like, nope, we're not. We have plenty of time to listen to podcasts. I've been, taking a walk around the neighborhood and listening to different podcasts that I wasn't tuning into for a while. So it's really just kind of figuring out what's your medium that you actually enjoy, and then do that, right? Don't do everything. choose a couple things. I think that's really hopefully come through this panel is choose the platform that suits you and the disposition of an INTJ. I love it. INTJs rock, they do. And then like, I never even mentioned, right? Like I have a private WhatsApp group that's really my core constituency. Like my people are in the WhatsApp. And so I think about that as a really different, so it's funny because I think it was you, right, that mentioned, Laird, that you think about that as one of social media. I'm like, no, that's my text group, right? And those are my people in my pocket. And then the other things are broader based. So just figuring out though, which of those things feed you and fuel you and serve you.
All right, great. Well, any last words of wisdom? I think we've pretty well covered the topic. But
somebody just asked, Julie just asked, how do you get comfortable using different social media platforms? That's a good question.
I would say just have fun and practice. Just watch people that you like, follow people that you like. And I also wanted to say something I forgot to say before, which is something other panelists have said, and that's there's a kind of a feedback loop where your ideas, like Nilofer was saying, your ideas come from social media. Like I get ideas for classes, for blogs that I'm going to write because I think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Or even just responding to someone's question gets us out of our own head and helps us look at our ideas, our material in a fresh way. And that's another benefit that I just wanted to underscore for social media.
yeah, that's really useful. So I think we'll end it there. I really appreciate all of you panelists and the audience too for great questions. I feel like I've learned something. I can go back to social media with some renewed intelligence and vigor. I'm sharing one more time the various contact information for the panelists, and I'm sure some of you would respond to questions if you're approached on Twitter or other platforms. And I hope we can all stay in touch. And you know, one of the things we can do on Twitter is follow each other. So you know, if people reach out to me at Laird H, I'm likely to follow you back because I'm interested in what other writers are doing. So let's keep the conversation going on these other platforms.
And I wish I could hug you all.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Love
Thank you
all
for
of you.
coming.